One of the key elements of the Critical Skills Shortage Initiative was the concept of thinking regionally. The reason for that is the state of Illinois is a very diverse area, geographically, population, and in the economy as well. A one-size approach to economic and workforce development will not work for a state as diverse as Illinois. Another element in our regional approach is that communities and local workforce areas need to improve cooperation and collaboration. Workforce development and economic development are very much a symbiotic relationship, and the better we can work together across those two areas, the better off our economic and workforce development efforts will be. Also, in thinking regionally, communities need to understand that a regional win helps all communities in the region. Along those same lines, regional assets in a region also benefit all communities in the region. How do we develop the regions used in economic and workforce development in the state of Illinois? Here is a map of the governor's economic development regions showing the 10 economic development regions across the state. On the right-hand map, these 10 economic development regions are superimposed upon the 26 local workforce areas across the state. The 10 geographic areas, known as Economic Development Regions, or EDRs, were designated as part of the Opportunity Returns Economic Development Strategy. Opportunity Returns focused on specific needs and strengths of each region. The regions were groups of counties with defined population centers and shared commuting patterns. One of the key elements of the regional customized approach was it allows us to take advantage of the competitive opportunities in each region. Each region across the state does have its own distinct and unique characteristics. Some are strengths, some are challenges, but in each case, a plan tailored to each region's strengths and weaknesses was developed. Regional economic development strategies need to focus on key sectors of the economy that are expected to drive growth in the future. In Illinois, 3 of the key sectors that were identified across the 10 regions and by the Illinois Workforce Investment Board are healthcare, manufacturing, and transportation, distribution, and logistics. What are sector strategies? Sector strategies build partnerships of employers, training providers, community organizations, and other key stakeholders around specific industries to address the workforce needs of employers and the training, employment, and career advancement needs of workers. Regional sector strategies focus on a specific industry at a regional level. There are 2 main goals of sector strategies. One is promoting the competitiveness of industries. The next is advancing the employment of low and middle income workers. Sector strategies are industry-specific regional approaches to workforce needs that address the needs of employers by focusing intensively on the workforce needs of a specific industry sector over a sustained period, often concentrating on a specific occupation or set of occupations within that industry. Regional sector strategies also address the needs of workers by creating formal career paths to good jobs, reducing barriers to employment, and sustaining or increasing middle-class jobs. Our sector strategies also bolster regional economic competitiveness by engaging economic development experts in workforce issues, aligning education, economic, and workforce development planning. They also engage a broader array of key stakeholders through partnerships organized by workforce intermediaries and, at the end of the day, hopefully promote systemic change that achieves ongoing benefits for the industry, workers, and community. The Critical Skills Shortages Initiative was meant to link economic and workforce development to meet the needs of employers for skilled workers in key industry sectors, and also to expand access to economic opportunities to make sure no worker or community is left behind. Again, the Critical Skill Shortages Initiative, or CSSI, was launched as part of the Opportunity Returns Economic Development Plan. CSSI established local workforce board-led coalitions to determine key industry sectors, determine the size and distribution of shortages in critical occupations, determine root causes and solutions, develop proposals to pilot test and implement solutions that leverage existing resources. The key element in this planning effort was that the state of Illinois nor the state workforce board did not dictate what sectors each region should feel is relevant to their economy. The industry leaders and local leaders and key stakeholders in each region had the opportunity to come together, look at the data that was out there, and decide on their own which key elements of the economy they wanted to focus on. CSSI had two phases, a planning phase and an implementation phase. In the planning phase, the key stakeholders in each region came together to identify the critical skill shortage occupations in the region and also determine the root causes. Key sectors were selected across the state. Of the 10 economic development regions, everyone selected healthcare as a key sector. 6 of the EDRs selected manufacturing, and 2 EDRs selected transportation, distribution, and logistics. Targeted occupations for efforts in the CSSI initiative must represent strong employment demand, be critical to industry competitiveness, provide good earnings and benefits, and be appropriate for targeting by the system. In determining the occupations, our planners looked at primary data, including employer surveys and local industry focus groups, and also secondary data, mainly LMI data, projections, enrollment and completion, and then follow-up analysis. The key also is to identify how big are the shortages and identify the nature of the shortages, i.e., do we need 100 extra nurses a year, 200 nurses per year across the region? And what is the nature of that shortage? Do the shortages occur mainly in long-term care facilities, in doctors' offices, in rural hospitals, or out in the private sector when companies have nurses on staff? In each of the key sectors, we can think of the education and employment system as a pipeline. This graphic represents a pipeline for the manufacturing sector. You can see the bridge programs, K through 12, and foundation programs are all points of entry into the pipeline. And the higher up you enter into the pipeline, the better off job you will get when you leave that credentialed program. One of the things that we try to be aware of as people go through the education pipeline is the transition points between levels, K through 12, associate degrees, and baccalaureate degrees. That's where people tend to drop out of the pipeline. So our key is to make sure that as individuals go through the education process, we find ways to help them stay in the pipeline until they find meaningful employment. Using the example of nurses, RNs, and LPNs, let's look at some of the causes of shortages in the pipeline. One issue often is employee retention. Employee retention can be an issue because of working conditions or low pay, lack of career advancement opportunities, or unrealistic expectations upon entering the employment sector. Graduate placement is another element that must be taken into consideration. Very often, especially in rural regions, graduates complete the training without a problem, but once they get their certificate or their degree, they leave the region and take a job somewhere else, often out of state or in an urban area. Program capacity and student completion is another issue. Oftentimes people are doing okay in training, but because of their child care and financial support needs, they often have difficulty successfully completing the program. Oftentimes, lack of qualified faculty limits the number of slots a training program can make available. The same goes for lack of clinical opportunities, a key element in nursing training. Oftentimes, too, the applicant pool is relatively small, either because of people unaware of the career path, or people graduate from high school without the ability to enter into the program without taking remedial classes. Sector strategies recruit, train, and support more workers in high-demand occupations. Sector initiatives must play a catalyst role in addressing workforce problems, including areas of skill shortages. The key thing we need to keep in mind is doing more of the same thing won't get different results. Creative solutions must focus on all root causes of the shortage. Many of the major causes require different strategies, not just enrolling and placing more people. Some key elements we need to work on are improving training retention, improving workplace retention, and improving screening before people are placed in training. Now, why are these important? If you consider that in the Southeast region, hundreds of individuals successfully complete CNA training every year. Far more complete the training than there are actually jobs available. But because of lack of employee retention in that job, there are a great number of vacancies that occur every week. Oftentimes also, we need to look at how people can better stay in training through either mentoring, support services, transportation issues, or financial aid to allow people to successfully complete their training. Another element that we need to look at is making sure people understand what a job is like before they enter training. The healthcare industry, especially due to occupational shortages, often has long hours, mandated overtime, and there are certain realities of working in a healthcare environment that many people don't understand until they either complete their training and take their first job, or after a short time on the job. So making sure that people understand what the job is going to be like when they enter training or are thinking of entering training will reduce strain on the system. Key element we need to keep in mind there is that people are more likely to successfully stay in a career, stay in an occupation, if they understand the rigors and the realities of what that job is like. Truck driving is another example. Many people it's a good paying job. Many people go into it and enjoy it for a little while. But the allure of the Charleston to Dallas, Texas run loses its allure after the 10th or 12th trip. So, and a long time away from home, away from family, these are elements that long-haul truck drivers face that drive most people out of the occupation after just a very short time. Some of the challenges that we face in our sector strategies is the need to have systems that can effectively manage and evaluate investments to share what works across regions. Sector strategies really ask institutions, including the workforce community and the education community, to think of things a little differently than they are used to. The reporting systems that the education community and workforce community have really are not geared to answer the questions that are asked by CSSI. And one of the things we need to do going forward is effectively put systems in place that allow us to understand the nature of the issues in front of us, such as the turnover rates in occupations, retention rates in training programs, dropout rates, capacity to provide trainees, things like that. We also need to do better at leveraging existing resources to sustain projects over the long haul. Most solutions can be done by aligning and integrating existing public and private resources. The idea is not that we need to add more money to the system, but we just need to make sure that the key stakeholders have the funding already available to them aligned so that the efforts that we undertake are not at cross purposes. So how do we develop solutions to our root causes? Let's take a couple of examples again in the nursing field. For example, one root cause is that traditional nursing students do not take jobs in rural facilities. Possible solutions to this cause of career shortages, critical skill shortages, is to expand enrollment of adult rural residents in programs, meaning expand the enrollment and target people who already live in a community. Usually it's the younger single people that leave the region after they take their training. But if we can target training at people who already have families and roots in the community but are looking for a better job than they currently have, then those people are more likely to stay around after they complete the training. We also can provide workplace-based upgrading programs for nurses' aides in rural facilities. Again, nursing aides that already are working at a facility have a career background in the healthcare field. They know what the environment's like. They likely have roots in the community and are much more likely to stay put after completing training than someone entering training right out of high school. Another root cause is that non-traditional students often lack academic preparation. There are many creative solutions to address that. We can look at adult bridge programs, including GED programs, English as a second language, or vocational English as a second language. The bridge program concept is to give fast-paced remedial training and education so that people can quickly bring their skill levels up to enter degree and certificate programs. Another element that can be looked at are K-12 programs with strong academic emphasis toward healthcare. The better we can train people in high school and educate people in high school, the better off they'll be when they enter nursing training programs at the community college level or at a hospital. One key problem that we want to avoid, and it happens far too often, is that people get their diploma, but then when they test to enter the nursing program, they find that they are deficient in certain skills. And then they spend sometimes a fair amount of time, or an inordinate amount of time, taking remedial classes, getting up to speed. Meanwhile, they're burning through their financial aid. More time is passing, and before you know it, their financial aid is about to run out. They've been in school for a year and a half, and they're now just ready to enter nursing. So, the longer it takes them to enter the bona fide nursing program after high school, the less chance they have of success. So what can we do now? As part of this process was to seek local input. Community audit of the region was funded by a grant from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities Bureau of Workforce Development. It's an opportunity for the key stakeholders in each region, in the Southeast region in this case, to determine the needs of this region. We've asked you to identify the specifics of your regional network shortages. You can work on determining the root causes and then solutions. And perhaps the most important point of the whole process is that it is the Southeast region's opportunity to influence how future investments will be targeted. Thank you for interest in CSSI, and we look forward to creative and innovative solutions to address our workforce needs as we go forward. Thank you.